He is the finest pitcher of his time, an artist who dominates with guile. And he's the most feared fireballer of his time. His name synonymous with power and intimidation, frightening everyone in his path. There was Gibson and Jenkins, legendary pitchers. When pitted against each other, legendary matchups. Koufax and Marichal, Carlton and Seaver. Tonight, another of those matchups. As usual, the men on the mound will take on dangerous lineups. They will challenge fierce rosters and look into the eyes of devastating sluggers. But tonight brings more than that. Tonight, two of the greatest hurlers of all time will do battle against each other for the very first time. Maddux of the Braves, Johnson of the Astros, head-to-head. And as we look ahead to the 1998 playoffs, best records in the National League become critical. Right now, the Braves by a single game over San Diego. The Astros are lurking. Everybody wants home field advantage the way the playoffs are formatted now. Bob Carpenter, Ray Knight, welcome to Turner Field in Atlanta. A matchup we've been waiting for all week. Let's start with Randy Johnson, Ray, who has been totally dominant since coming over from Seattle.
Well, all you have to know about Randy Johnson, he's the all-time leader in strikeouts per 9 innings, ahead of Nolan Ryan and Sandy Koufax. Great fastball, great slider, comes in with a hard fastball. You'll see him around 97, 98 tonight, then breaks that breaking ball down around your ankles. Nobody can really touch that ball. You can't swing at the breaking ball. If you're going to get him, you got to get him with a fastball away. He doesn't throw a lot of them out there fat. 97, 98 miles an hour, he's nasty.
And the good news for the Braves, it's not in Houston tonight. He has 3 shutouts there, striking out 37 and walking only 3 in those 3 games. Now, Greg Maddux, could he or Roger Clemens or both be headed for a 5th Cy Young this year? He has been that good.
Well, he's unbelievable. You know, you watch him day in and day out. He never changes. He has the ability to throw that sinker to spots in the strike zone, and not very many people can. 97 playoffs here against Bagwell. That pitch was called a ball, then a slider for a strike. He comes back with another slider for a strike. Then watch the movement on this fastball. Moving back from the outside part of the plate. Great movement. You use the word guile. That best describes him. Just tough, feels his position well. The best in the business.
But to a man, the Astros feel they match up a lot better with Atlanta than they did during that 3-game sweep a year ago. The playoff pursuit continues. Randy Johnson of Houston and Greg Maddux of Atlanta should be a dandy tonight. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Ace Hardware. Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
John Butchergrass here in the Wednesday Night Baseball studios. I'll be here all night, of course, right now, getting you up to date on Destination 62, Chasing History. Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Big Mac in FLA, man on in the first, and no homers yet. A double play for Big Mac in the top of the first, so he is stuck on 57, no score in the third. The Cardinals have won 3 games in a row. The Fish have lost 6 in a row. Meanwhile, how about Sammy in Wrigley in the sunshine? 2 homers behind McGwire. Top of the third, runners on the corners. Barry Larkin to short. Manny Alexander, the sweet 6-4-3 double play. He starts it. Cubs out of trouble. Bottom 6. Sammy at the plate. Launching to right. Is it enough? Yeah, check out the catch by the fan. Yeah, baby. Number 56 for Sammy, of course, ties a Cub club record with Hack Wilson. Sammy going the other way. 56 homers. Top of the 7, Steve Traxel cruising. Jeffrey Hammond's looking. Brett Boone goes down looking. 7 strong for Traxel. Top of the 8th, runners on first and second. Dimitri Young to the gap. To the Ivy. Tabenzi. Larkin come in to score. 44th double for Young. 2-1 Reds. Now bottom of the 8th. Cubs down 2-1. Gary Gaetti in the house. Gary Gaetti out of the house. 2-run shot. Cubs up 3-2. They go on to win by the final score of 4-2. So once again, Sosa's 56th homer, 1 behind McGwire. And of course, it ties him with Hack Wilson for the Cub club record. Moving on 1 to San Francisco, Barry Bonds. 32nd homer of the year. The Giants pound the Expos. Final score 12-3. Barry's 4th homer in his last 4 games. Jeff Kent, career-high 13-game hit streak as the Giants continue on, keeping pressure on the Mets and the Cubs in the NL wildcard race. And here is the up-to-date wildcard race. The Cubs, with the win, go up by a game and a half on the Mets, who have yet to play yet, and the Giants now just 2 back. Red Sox and Mariners, they had about a half-hour rain delay before this one got underway. Steve Avery on the hill for Boston has no score in the top of the first. The Sox and the Mariners, of course, Junior Griffey. Tigers and Rangers. The Rangers began the night 2.5 behind the Angels, 8 behind the Red Sox, who lead the wild card. No score here in the top of the second. Orioles and White Sox, no score here in the top of the third. The Orioles have lost 9 straight games as their playoff hopes have just about been dashed. We mentioned the Mets have yet to play tonight. Well, they will, and they'll do it on ESPN. Mets and Pods from San Diego at 10:30. But now we go out to Bob Carpenter and Ray Knight, Astros, Rays.
Well, it's a gorgeous night in Atlanta. We've had rain in the area. Things have really cooled off, but that will not cool off what we may see on the mound tonight. As we stay on our heavyweight theme, Evander Holyfield in the ballpark tonight throughout the first pitch. He didn't want to leave right away, so they let him meet with the umpires and exchange lineup cards. He can stay as long as he wants as far as we're concerned. Don't tell me he's got rotator cuff problems too. What a great athlete, what a great civic personality he is here in Atlanta. Braves have taken the field. Maddux has taken the mound. And let's have a look at the Houston lineup. Second in the league, hitting at .279. Colorado is number 1 in the league. They're 6th in homers. They are the best speed team in the National League with 136 steals. The Nextel starting lineup starts with Biggio, as it always does. Gutierrez solid in the number 2 hole, but really 1 through 5, they're as good as anybody in baseball. Moises Alou having a career year, 3rd in the league in batting average. He's in the top 3 in homers and RBIs, career highs. Carl Everett's doing a nice job. Barry will get a lot of play at 3rd now that Billy Spires is hurt.
Pitcher for the Braves, the great Greg Maddux. 17-6, 1.98, the best in baseball. Opposition hitting .246 against him. I don't have to say too much about him. He's going to face this real strong Astro lineup tonight. There you see 169 hits and 218 2/3 inning pitch. That's phenomenal. You want to just give up as many hits as innings pitched. Tom Seaver used to say if you can combine hits and walks, and that's less than inning pitched, you're some kind of great pitcher, and Maddux does that. Defense for the Braves, pretty much as usual, except at first base, and got Coburn starting over there, former catcher, now playing first base, late season acquisition with Galarraga suspended.
Andres Galarraga is serving the first of his 3-game suspension tonight. At a hearing with Leonard Coleman yesterday, the ruling came down today. So they're without the big cat at first base. In the middle of that lineup, Javi Lopez is the Atlanta cleanup man. We'll have a look at their lineup in the bottom of the inning. Greg Biggio, whom many consider now the best leadoff hitter in baseball. He's just out of the top 10 in the league with that .405 on base average. That's because all the big power hitters are getting a lot of walks this year. Biggio takes strike 1 from Maddux, and of course Greg will tell you the best pitch in baseball is a 90-mile-an-hour fastball for strike 1 with movement. He does it almost every time. Little breaking ball low and away. He'll throw that slider. He's got a splitter. He's got a circle change that we'll see later. And all the movement, Ray, you could possibly want on all of those pitches.
He does have great movement, Bobby, and you'll see that he uses that fastball on the outside part of the plate better than anybody in baseball. He can throw the fastball in to set that pitch up away, then he throws sliders, and he has a great changeup that he throws right in front of the plate, circle changeup, basically 3 pitches.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Challenge him with a high fastball. The interesting thing about the battery tonight, the fact that the man behind Biggio does not usually catch Greg Maddux. Javier Lopez is usually on the bench. Eddie Perez usually gets the start. Gary Darling behind him, the home plate umpire. But Javi Lopez is so hot, with Galarraga out, they cannot put him on the bench.
That's exactly right.
1 ball, 2 strikes to the leadoff man, Biggio. There's that fastball running to the outside corner. Craig gave up on it. It came right back to strike him out. Everybody talks about finesse. This guy's in the top 5 in the league in strikeouts.
Well, he certainly is, and he doesn't have the overpowering stuff to do it. But watch Javi's glove. He's got it about 4 inches outside, moves the ball back. Why it's so tough on right-handed hitters is because this ball appears to be in the left-handed batter's box as it gets about halfway home, and then it moves back almost sideways right back on the outside part of the plate.
You don't see Biggio fail to take the bat off his shoulder very often. Ricky Gutierrez fouls one off his foot. Many people believe that the way the Astros are playing this year, with such great run production, they lead the National League, by the way, with 769, is partly due to this young man's emergence. He normally hits lower in the lineup. With Spires out, he's in the number 2 hole tonight. They have great production top to bottom. There's a breaking ball. Maddux hung it, and he put it out into left center. Andrew Jones unable to make the play, and Gutierrez digs for 2. He is out at second base. Quick recovery by Andrew Jones. Base is empty, 2 outs.
Well, he did a lot of things right on this play, Bobby. He gets a great jump on the ball, then he smothered the ball in the outfield. Then he gets to his feet very quickly. That's 3 things, and he makes a perfect throw. But watch how he smothers this ball, knocks it down, jumps right to his feet, somehow gets the ball with the good seams, makes a perfect throw to Graffinino. Great tag, some kind of play, and they're talking about him being a Gold Glove winner, if not this year, real close in the future. Another angle, perfect throw, tag right there on the bag. Just, that's an unbelievable play. I can see why they're talking about Gold Glove winner.
That ties the former Astro, Bob Abreu, for the league lead in assists. That is Andrew Jones, 16th of the year. Bobby Cox has not always been so positive about Andrew in center field. Pulled him one night when he dogged it on a bloop base hit. He's not dogging it anymore. 2 outs. Derek Bell, the batter, riding a 6-game hitting streak. Ball 2 up high. Maddux got away with a pitch there on Gutierrez. He really hung a breaking ball in there, and Ricky hit it very well. Maddux was roughed up early the other night in St. Louis. The Cardinals got 3 runs in the first 2 innings in a game they eventually won in extras when he got a no decision.
If you really approach Maddux trying to hit that fastball down the right field line and that front shoulder tight, it will keep you on the ball and allow you to pull the breaking ball to left center field gap. And that's what Gutierrez did. Not real good break on the breaking ball.
There's a good running fastball, strike 2. And then the start before that game at St. Louis last week, he gave up 7 runs in 5 innings here against the Dodgers. So Maddux, a little human lately. But even when he scuffled in St. Louis the other night, he found a way to get the ball game tied into the 8th inning. 2-2 pitch. Up the middle. To his right, Graffinino with a big hop. And the Astros are gone in the top of the first. Gutierrez got the hit. Andrew Jones threw him out. And now the other half of our pitching matchup tonight, a good Atlanta team against the dominating Randy Johnson. Here, told you the Astros are 2nd in the league in batting. The Braves are 3rd, 1st in home runs. And their Nextel starting lineup starts with Ozzie Guillen. And then Gerald Williams in right, Chipper Jones at 3rd, and Javier Lopez on fire lately with Galarraga out. Bobby Cox needs his red-hot catcher who's having a career year in that cleanup spot. That Andrew Jones getting better every day. We talked about Colburn earlier. No surprise to see Ryan Klesko batting 7th. I'm not sure I'd want to be up any higher than that if I'm a left-handed batter against Randy Johnson, the most fearsome man in the game.
I don't know if I'd want to be up there at all. We showed in our open how he can be erratic with his fastball, but that is by choice. Randy Johnson has developed great control early in his career. Tough time, but look at those stats, 1.17. That's mind-boggling. Great fastball, great slider. You're not going to do a whole lot with him unless you get ahead of him in the count. If he gets ahead of you, he's going to bury you. As we mentioned, all-time strikeout leader per 9 innings, averaging about 10.5.
High breaking ball inside to Ozzie Guillen. There was some conjecture about an hour and a half ago that Ozzie may not be able to go tonight. I would not blame any left-handed batter for not starting in this game. But their choice was not Walt Weiss, who's out for a week with a bad quad. Ryan Klesko is going to get up on the rail to see if he can figure something out between now and his at-bat. Here's the 1-1 pitch. And it's slapped foul outside first. Walt Weiss, a bad quad, took a cortisone shot yesterday. They think he'll be out for a week. The alternative was young Mark DeRosa. Rosters expanded today, and the Braves brought him up not from AAA but from AA Greenville. Now that would be something to ask of a kid his first day in the big leagues. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Guillen. Adam reaching, little pop-up left side. Gutierrez out, Alou in, Moyes is the call, 1 out.
On defense for the Astros, they do a lot of platooning there at third base and in center field. Carl Everett done a great job. And Sean Berry over there at third base now with Spires out. Talk about how strong his ball club is. That third base tandem is going to drive in right at 90 runs, score right at 100 runs.
Fastball whistles up and away to Gerald Williams. Gerald, the former Yankee, hitting .289. He was with Milwaukee last year when he hit .253 in 155 ball games. Atlanta's so good at picking up the extra players they need. Williams out there. There's a right-hander on the mound. You'll see Michael Tucker, another former American leaguer. 3 balls and no strikes very quickly. Randy Johnson on the year, 16 wins. He was 11-10 for Seattle. He missed on 4 in a row.
Bobby, one thing coming into a league never having pitched here in Atlanta, Johnson doing a lot of toeing out there on the rubber, a lot of pawing with his feet. Going to have to get comfortable on this mound. Never pitched off of it. Doesn't throw in the bullpen. When you get loose in the bullpen. So he'll have to make a little adjustment here early, getting used to this mound here in Atlanta, which is tailored, obviously, for these Brave pitchers.
Yeah, I guess if you can't pitch off this mound, you can't pitch anywhere, huh? Chipper Jones, the batter. There's the runner moving. Breaking ball, no throw. Stolen base number 8 for Gerald Williams. Randy Johnson at 6'11". Takes a while to get homeward, and Gerald was going very quickly.
Well, he went on the first move. Randy's got such a big leg kick and never has worried about runners too much. His feeling is that he can get people out whether they're on first and second. He's such a power pitcher. He doesn't worry about runners too much because it messes up his concentration.
0-1 pitch, low and inside. When your opponent's batting average is 190, there aren't many base runners to worry about. Chipper Jones this year, 32 home runs. He went deep last night. Only 2 of those from the right side this year. At the 100 RBI mark again. And Randy overpowers him. That ball late off to the other side.
Well, there's no question this Atlanta Brave ball club is much tougher against right-handed pitching. You negate Klesko left-handed, you put Tucker on the bench, and certainly you have to deal with not having Galarraga in the lineup tonight.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Galarraga suspension starting tonight. Ball gets away. Osmus didn't know it. And over to third base goes Gerald Williams. That's got to be a pass ball. The ball was down low, but it didn't appear to skip out in front of him. I just don't think he got his glove down in time.
No, he didn't. What happens here, he just thinks he has the ball in the web of his glove. He gets it down there and he hits in the web. He thinks it has it trapped right there against the ground. The ball just got by him, but that's exactly what Osmus did. He thought he had the ball right in the webbing, trapped beneath the ground in his glove.
Well, maybe this is how you score on Randy Johnson. Walk, steal, pass ball. Maybe a fly ball or a ground ball here some way. As Chipper looks for number 101, but he strikes out on the low slider. 2 out now with that runner at third. And let's check in with John Buccigross.
Mitsubishi takes us to Florida. Mark McGwire bounced into a double play his first at bat. His second at bat, he walks for the 144th time this year. We'll show you every McGwire AB tonight.
Yeah, last week, Mark McGwire broke the St. Louis all-time walk record held by Jack Clark back in 1987. He's got a chance to catch the babe in that department as well. Here's Javier Lopez having the year of his life. 2-out base hit, and Atlanta takes the lead 1-0. RBI number 97. He's putting up the best numbers by an Atlanta catcher and really a Braves catcher, because this was in Milwaukee since Joe Torre back in '66.
Well, he really has. And I was talking to Bobby Dews before the game today. As you see, the fastball ripped the opposite, to left field. The ball was actually out away from him. And Bobby Dews was saying that Javi Lopez plays every day, any day you want him to play. He plays banged up, never says anything. And in his mind, there's Bobby Dews, the third base coach, the most underrated catcher in the game in the last 10 years. You don't hear anything about Javi Lopez. You hear about Chipper and you hear about Galarraga and this pitching staff. But Javi's become a great offensive and defensive player.
That's his 14th RBI in his last 8 games plus 1 at bat. Joe Torre hit 36 homers with 101 RBIs in '66. Lopez having the biggest year by an Atlanta catcher since. 2-0 pitch for Andrew Jones. On the corner, running fastball. What a fascinating thing it's going to be to watch this young man for the next 10 years or so. 3-1.
Well, he can hit a fastball. We came in here last year, and he had a couple of home runs against pitching staff in Cincinnati, and he was swinging a lot of bad breaking balls. But it doesn't matter how hard you throw, this young man can catch up to it.
3-1 pitch. Another Randy Johnson walk. A walk, a steal, a pass ball, a base hit, now another walk. And it's not like Gary Darling is squeezing Randy Johnson. He has really not been that close to throwing strikes in the first inning. Lopez down to second.
Early in his career, there you see just 8 strikes and 11 balls. Early in his career, 91, 92, 93, Randy was terrible with control, leading the American League in walks. Last year, just 77 base on balls.
He did not walk a man his last start against the Pirates in the Astrodome the other night.
He's just coming in tight here. He's just having a tough time right now with his mechanics, finding his rhythm on the mound, because he's been in, out, up, and down.
Well hit left field, hooking foul. As Colbert hit one out of here, but he couldn't keep it fair. Greg's hit 3 homers this year, 1 for the Braves in 12 games since coming over.
Fastball up and in. Coburn getting the bat head out, and that's all you have to do as a hitter, is just get yourself started a little earlier. Don't worry about the slide or anything soft. You got to be ready to hit the fastball.
Coburn hitting .278 for the Braves with a homer and 6 RBIs. 1-1 pitch. Fastball powdered by him. Two on, 2 out, a run home. What do they say? You better get him early. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Little bouncer to third. To the bag goes Berry, and the Braves are done. But with Randy Johnson walking to and struggling with control, Atlanta gets the Javier Lopez base hit to take the lead early. Good batters due up for Houston, top of the second, but Atlanta has the early lead. The NFL season is upon us here on ESPN and on ABC. Sunday Night Football, the Raiders and the Chiefs, one of the greatest rivalries from the old days of the AFC. Jeff George, Derek Thomas, what a duel that will be. That's Sunday. And then ABC Monday Night Football, the Patriots and the Broncos. Al Michaels, Dan Dierdorf, and Boomer will be there. Drew Bledsoe and John Elway matching it up. And, of course, Terrell Davis will be there as well. What a week it is for matchups. We'll see Bagwell and Maddux. Then we'll see Moises Alou, who some folks are talking about as a possible National League most valuable player this year. Bagwell hitting .281 and a breaking ball outside. This man came out of the All-Star break on fire, his hottest streak since he was the NL MVP in '94. He's tough, but he's not that tough. NL MVP. 2 balls, no strikes. He was looking for that fastball. High in the air, right field corner, and it finds the seats.
Well, Greg gives you that motion that's so nice and easy, and then he just throws that ball with late movement. He looks comfortable. And there, Bagwell is a great fastball hitter, but 88 miles an hour fastball, he got it by him a little bit.
2-1 pitch. High fly, right field corner deep. Williams at the track, and he can't get it, and that's a home run. The ball hit above the yellow line, and for Bagwell, who got his 200th earlier this year, that's number 29. Houston storms back to tie the game. And that's the 4th time he's taken Greg Maddux deep in his career.
Well, you mentioned the Astros leading the league in runs. They're 4th in home runs. Look at this ball away and mention how Maddux likes to go away with the fastball, and good hitters take the ball the opposite way against him, and there you go. High fly ball to right field, barely eking out.
Now Alou checks one to the gap in right center, and this is good for a couple. Moises Alou, a .312 batting average into that at bat, and the Houston power hitters go the other way against Greg Maddux.
Well, as it always seems to be, Bobby, when we talk about a hype pitching matchup, it turns into an offensive affair. And tonight, so far, no difference. But you're talking about great hitters in Bagwell and Alou, as you mentioned, having a great year, .312, 38 home runs, driving the ball to right center field. And again, when you have seen a guy as much as Bagwell and these men have seen Maddux, they know that they have to have success going the other way.
When you win championships, there's usually 1 or 2 guys who pop up who have career years. The man in the batter's box is one of those people. Carl Everett, single-season career highs for hits, RBIs, and doubles. Batting .309. 1-0 pitch. He goes the other way, hits it sharply, but Chipper Jones is right there, playing well off the line. You know, Everett's a guy, he's a combination of speed and power, Ray, and I know he intrigued the Mets for quite a while before they finally gave up on him.
Well, there was a lot of talk, has been a lot of talk around baseball about Everett and the great ability he has, even when he was drafted in the expansion draft by the Florida Marlins. But getting back to right there, what Maddux did in that situation, runner on second base, made Everett hit a ball away from him and disallowed him to get the runner to third base. And that's a part of great pitching, knowing the situation and pitching accordingly.
It'll be very interesting now to watch Sean Berry if indeed he plays third base every day. Billy Spires hurting his hand last night. Both Berry and Spires, who hits left-handed, hit about 100 points higher against pitchers throwing from the other side. So now Sean Berry's going to have to produce for Larry Dierker against right-handed batters, and there's Spires with the right hand all taped up. Got a nasty hop on a wicked shot here last night. You can see the knuckles swollen, fingers are taped together. He's got a cut in the webbing between those fingers. 1-1 pitch.
And that's because as he went down to make that play, I was watching, the ball took that wicked hop and hit him right between the ring finger and the middle finger and actually just split his hand there.
That's a real good left-handed batter, platoon guy on your bench. Runner going, swing, and the ball hits the runner. He is out. Moises Alou was diving head first into third base, and the ball hit him. It'll be a base hit for Berry, but Alou is out.
Well, this is a great thing for a runner to do, and I really like this play. When you start the runner with a right-handed hitter up, you start the runner, the third baseman vacates. And when he vacates, there's a big hole, almost just like a hit and run. But the ball definitely hit him. You cannot be hit in front of a fielder. Now, if there's no chance for that ball to be caught, then the umpire has the discretion. Look here.
See, that ball would have been through because the third baseman's breaking to the bag with the runner. There's no way Chipper Jones would have made that play.
Well, there's no way. And if you actually run behind a fielder and get hit by a ball, it's a no play, and you go ahead and play the ball. And I just wonder in this situation, with third baseman vacating and having no chance for that play with the ball hitting him, should he be out?
It looked like Alou knew where the ball was, and that's why he went into his slide, but it hit him right on the back. So Barry's at first with 2 down now, and Brad Osmus, the number 8 man, is the catcher after a very bizarre play that will probably cost Houston a run unless they get a big 2-out extra base hit. Brad Osmus, batting 8th, is riding a 7-game hitting streak. Maddux moves him away. So on that play, you give a put-out to the third baseman, Chipper Jones, for being the closest man to the play. I wonder if Chipper's seen that one before.
I don't think so.
Now a 1-0 pitch is upstairs, ball 2.
Well, I know why they're talking about this, because this rule is not clear. If you actually are behind a fielder and the ball hits you, it's a no play. In front of a fielder, it's automatic. You're out, and the runner gets a base hit, and you're out for interference. But as I was watching the play unfold and Chipper vacate third base, there was no way he could have caught that ball. And I guess by the rule book, if you're going by the letter or the written law, he's automatically out because he's in front of the fielder.
2 balls, no strikes to Osmus. There's a high strike. Another little subplot to our matchup tonight will be Randy Johnson and Greg Maddux batting against each other. 2 balls, 1 strike. Johnson in the on-deck circle. Bouncer up the middle. That's a base hit. And Randy Johnson will have a chance for his 2nd Major League RBI. So it's 1st and 2nd, 2 outs. And that play at third base right now keeping the Astros from a big inning. Randy Johnson at the plate, 1 for 19 this year with his only Major League RBI. He was 2 for 6 as a Montreal Expo before he went to Seattle in '89.
He's got an ugly hack. He's got a big strike zone and an ugly hack. I've watched him swing.
That's not a good combination, Rick.
No. But there's nothing that a pitcher hates worse than to have the 8-hole hitter getting on base so that you have the leadoff hitter leading off the inning. You like to get him out and have to face the pitcher.
Randy fouls one back, 1 ball, 1 strike. It was ironic that in 1989, when Randy Johnson was sent from Montreal to Seattle, you might remember Mark Langston was involved in that deal. The last team he pitched against in the National League, guess who? The Atlanta Braves. 9 years later, he steps in with a chance for an RBI. 1-1 pitch. Randy looks out of the mound a little bit. He's got a protector. He's got a protector on his left elbow upper arm area.
Well, Javi sets up outside, and this is just a pitch. It gets away from Maddux. I don't know that I've seen him ever miss the target by 3 feet, and that's what he did. Target down and away, throws that ball up and in.
9th Astro to bat. 5 of the previous 8 have base hits. 4 of them in this inning. And that's out to short. Ozzie Guillen backs up, goes to first, and that'll do it for Houston. They got the leadoff home run from Jeff Bagwell. Home run number 29, RBI number 92. He's big and strong. He took it out here the other way.
A home run has been hit in Florida by a Cardinal, but it ain't McGuire. Ken Merker's first career home run is a grand slam. He's 443 behind McGuire's 444. The Cardinals up 7-0.
Well, Ken Merker's been telling Dave Parker all year he's a good hitter. Nobody, I guess, believes him until tonight. And we go to the bottom of the 2nd here in Atlanta. A 1-1 ball game, Maddux and Johnson. And here's Ryan Klesko. Ray's going to fill us in a moment on the letter of the law regarding that play at third base last half inning. Ryan Klesko bats number 7 tonight against Randy Johnson. It's in there, strike one.
Just quickly, Rule 7.08, if the runner is touched by a fair ball in fair territory before the ball is touched or passed an infielder, the ball is dead and no runner may score nor advance.
So what if Chipper Jones is playing on the grass and it happens behind him?
Once the ball has passed the fielder, the ball is in play.
There's a good Randy Johnson heater. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Klesko. Tony Graffinino, Greg Maddux to follow here. Bottom 2 in a 1-1 game. Klesko, a chopper to short, forces Gutierrez to lay back, and he boots it. That'll be his 14th error of the year. It's the one part of the Houston ball game that's been rather mediocre this year. They're in the middle of the league in team defense.
This is how you pitch a left-hander. Give him the slider away, and you come back with a fastball up. Then he came back with a fastball, perfect pitch away, and then he makes you just reach for a fastball down. That's a very defensive swing on a... But this infield surface, as we've talked to a couple of players about, is really tough.
A delayed steal. RC picked off, and then Osmus drops the ball. Either somebody missed a sign or Klesko had a delayed steal. When Osmus looked up, Klesko was frozen halfway to second, and then Brad couldn't handle the baseball.
Could have been a hit and run, and because of the bad pitch, Graffinino could not get his bat on the baseball, and because we saw Klesko try to halt out there.
That's the second time in this game Bobby Cox gets a base runner and has him on the move 1 pitch later. So second base, nobody out. Graffinino, 21 RBIs. Batting just .212. And the Braves are sort of wondering about their second base position. Of course, Mark Lemke and Jeff Lauser held things together up the middle here for quite a number of years. This is an infield in transition. They don't have any worries at first and third, but up the middle, things a bit uncertain. 1-1 pitch. High in the air. Right field. No chance for Klesko to advance. Biggio the catch for the first out. And again, here's John Buccigross.
Let's go to Cleveland. Jim Edmonds in the house for the Angels against Bartolo Colon. Jim Edmonds out of the house. Good news for the Angels, who earlier in the game lost Aaron Erstad. He left the game with an apparent hamstring injury. Of course, he was on the DL in early August with a left hamstring injury.
All right, John. Cleveland, a comfortable lead in the Central. They've won 3 straight. Anaheim starts this Wednesday, 2.5 up on Texas. And here's Greg Maddux, a good hitting pitcher. He was joking around today that bunting could be a possibility against Randy Johnson no matter what the situation. This guy can swing the bat. 3 RBIs this year. 44 in his big league career. That'll even the count. 1 ball, 1 strike. Maddux got jammed a bit and fouled it back. Strike 2. You see a lot of guys looking at their trademark after they foul a pitch off against Randy Johnson.
Well, you know you're in trouble when it's that baseball mark is about 8 inches above your hand.
That's a little too close, huh?
A little too close.
Randy struggled with control first inning with a walk to Williams, who scored on the Lopez base hit. Then he walked on Drew Jones, got Colburn to get out of the inning. Maddux, a little flare out into center field. Here comes Everett. He is there, and that's the second out. Top of the order, Ozzie Guillen coming up. Let's talk about some of the great matchups that have taken place over the years. Ray, let's talk about Hall of Famers. And it's interesting that Koufax and Marichal only had 3 decisions all those times they met out west.
See, that's hard to believe. They played each other so often out there when there were not a lot of teams in the National League, 10 teams total.
Tom Seaver dominating Steve Carlton. Jim Palmer, Catfish Hunter breaking even. Fergie Jenkins, one of the few guys ever to have the edge on Bob Gibson. And I don't think too many people beat Don Drysdale that many times like Juan Marichal of those great Giant team did. Outstanding matchups down through the years. Two of the best ever getting together tonight here. Ozzie Guillen flied to left, first time up, strike one. Pretty good pickup for the Braves after the Orioles let him go. A lot of good solid years with the White Sox. And that one on the corner. That's not fair. 0-2.
Well, it's so tough to pick Randy up. Not only is he 6'9", he drops down. Look here, up almost sidearm, and the angle is so acute. I mean, that ball almost starts behind a left-handed hitter and then gets the outside part of the plate. That's nasty, boy.
Little chopper to third. Perry plays it to the backhand side, and the Braves are gone in the bottom of the second. The opening error by Gutierrez and the steal do not hurt. Two stranded by each team. It's 1-1 on to the third. Mother Nature at work tonight, where trees and girders and ballparks meet here in the South Atlanta neighborhood, right south of downtown. And tomorrow, part 4 of the home run calls, chasing history on ESPN. I'll look at the broadcasters who called the historic homers, from Rizzuto's call of Maris to Kurt Gowdy of Hank Aaron, who will call number 62 this year. And then part 5 Friday, giving up number 62. How about Al Downing, who gave it up to Aaron, or Tracy Stallard, who gave up Roger Maris's blast? Are you kidding me? Tracy Stallard turning 61 this week. It's coming up tomorrow and Friday on ESPN. Ironies everywhere as McGuire and Sosa continue chasing history. Here's Biggio leading off against Greg Maddux, top of the third. Fastball runs to the outside corner, strike one. Maddux struck out the game's best leadoff man to start the ball game. That's his only case so far. That one got the middle of the plate, and Biggio gets it up the middle. 6 base hits now against Greg Maddux. And again, we check in with John Buccigross.
Mark McGuire's third at bat. It could be, it might be, it is. His 145th walk. Time to start a chasing history chart for walks, guys. McGuire's 25 away from Ruth's record.
Well, some boos for the hometown pitcher. In the last week, we've seen McGuire take curtain calls on the road. It first happened in Pittsburgh, and it happened twice in Miami last night. Here's Ricky Gutierrez and the Astros all over the bases now against Maddux. Ricky, that single out to left center first time up. Andrew Jones smothered the ball, as Ray so aptly put it. Popped up and threw him out at second base, trying to stretch it into a double. And then in the second, Bagwell homers, Alou doubles, Berry singles, Osmus singles, and the Astros only managed that one run because a bouncing ball hits Alou diving into third. Now Biggio singles, and it's 6 base hits by Houston already. As many hits as men retired. Time asked by Gutierrez, and Gary Darling came out and gave it to him.
Yeah, that's awfully late, too. But you mentioned MVP with a Lou. I'm not sure Biggio should not start receiving some consideration. Man has scored 111 runs, stolen 44 out of 49 bases in his attempt to steal. And he is the spark plug this ball club. Has driven in 78 runs. But you know, when you're on a ball club as good as the Astros, it's pretty hard to have an MVP because you have your voting isn't blocked. You've got Bagwell, you've got Alou, you've got Biggio. It's tough to pick out who the MVP is on this club. And
people tend to vote for the power guys. I'll say one thing for Biggio. He's in a very exclusive company of which Ray Knight is a member. The 40 steal, 40 double club. A 40-40 of a different sort. You did that.
Yeah, right. 40 steals in my career.
Oh, that's right. He's done it all this year, hasn't he?
Yeah.
No balls, 2 strikes. We had to call you on that one. Low and away, ball 1. Greg Maddux had a rookie umpire behind home plate Friday night in St. Louis. Hunter Wendelstedt, Harry's son. He thought he got squeezed severely early in the game, and the Cardinals did the same thing Houston's doing tonight. They were taking him the other way. If you look at the hit pattern, there's only been a couple that have even been close to pull. Everything else up the middle or right field. And there's Gutierrez trying to shoot the ball the other way.
Well, I'm going to show you why. When you watch Lopez set up behind the plate, he doesn't even have his body centered on the plate. His left shin guard is on the outside corner of the plate. And so many umpires move out there with Maddux as the catcher shifts. Look how far he is outside. His glove is already 4 or 5 inches off the plate.
Got him on that sinking fastball. Strikeout number 2. That's the first out here in the third.
And Maddux so adept at throwing that ball out there. Great sink on that pitch, starting about knee high and ended up down there around the ground.
It didn't really look like the splitter. I wonder if we just saw the circle change for the first time tonight. Really went down at the end.
Well, he's got 2 pitches that can do that. The changeup, actually 3. The changeup, the splitter, and the fastball all sink. We just have to look at the speed to verify what the pitch is.
Derek Bell, the batter. 10 base hits his last 6 games.
And Javi was setting up on the inside part of the plate there. Shifts, I think, as much as any catcher in the game. This pitching staff wants it. Leo Mazzoni demands it. Seldom does he set down the heart of the plate. Watch how he shifts to the inside part of the plate here.
Well, the Astros have produced some very good young outfielders the last couple of years. Leo Mazzoni, Bobby Cox watching as Maddux works to one of the veteran Houston guys. But they really had a choice to make when the expansion draft rolled around on whether to protect Derek Bell or Bobby Abreu. They chose to keep Bell. Abreu now doing a nice job in Philly, hitting 280, 290 or so. For most of the season, he's been very good the second half, and he's up over 300 now. And they've got themselves a good right fielder over there for years to come. But Houston has another one on the way in Richard Hidalgo, who's on the bench tonight. He has contributed recently. So the pipeline keeps on coming for an organization under Jerry Hunziker that's producing some real good talent right now. And a 1-0 pitch instead over to first. Back in there, Biggio, 44 out of 49, stealing this year. 5 times Maddux has thrown to first. You've got Bell here, Bagwell next. That's why Maddux wants to keep him close. He'd love a ground ball to end this inning and let Jeff Bagwell lead off the 4th. Runner goes. Line drive, right center. Jones is there. This is going to be a double play if the throw's on target. And there's a different kind of double play. It'll go 8-3. And Andrew Jones has 2 assists on the night and 17 on the year. That'll make Bagwell lead off next inning. It's still 1-1. Biggio, nothing he could do on that play. He had a great jump. He was beyond second base when this ball was caught.
Well, he was, and you're taught when you're looking in, if that ball's in the line and you're already committed to second base, you might as well keep on going because you're going to be out anyway. He wasn't even close to getting back. When you have that good a jump on a steal, it's just hard to get back and the ball hit that hard. Great throw by Andrew Jones. I guess it's Andrew this week.
Andrew Jones, 17 assists. Astros have lost 3 men on the bases now tonight. And going the other way for a base hit, Gerald Williams. He scored Atlanta's only run walking in the first. Stealing second, third on the pass ball, and home on the Lopez base hit. And that's the lead run aboard on the second base hit given up by Randy Johnson.
Fastball away, he gets the ball right out there, but he went the other way with that pitch. And that's the only way you're going to do a lot with Randy Johnson, to get the ball out away from you because it's so hard to get the bat head through the ball on the inside part of the strike zone. At 95 miles an hour, if you do, you're going to hit it foul as Coburn did earlier in this ball game.
Chipper Jones struck out first time up. Runner goes. Throw is on target but late. And Gerald Williams has his 9th of the year, his 2nd of the game.
Boy, this advanced scouting is showing up tonight. Both of these ball clubs running on a Greg Maddux, who everyone knows is slow to the plate. And on the first move, not a real good jump there. Actually got a poor jump. Good job, Osmus. Good throw, but speed made up for it. Kind of a swiping tag, tagged him over the base. You see that, Bobby, as opposed to dropping the tag down between the base and the runner's foot.
3 steals by the Braves tonight. Another man advances on a pass ball.
Look at the tag here. He sweeps the ball right over the bag as opposed to way down in. At that angle, you couldn't tell, but he actually swept the tag right over the center of the bag.
1-1 pitch to Chipper Jones.
At least I couldn't tell by that angle.
Yeah, the normal mode of operation, lay the glove down in front of the bag, let the base runner slide right into it. That was a bang play. I mean, you know they've scouted well with Klesko stealing tonight, although that was a bit of a different play, maybe a missed hit and run. We'll see if Randy Johnson tries to work Chipper inside to keep him from hitting the ball the other way with that runner at second base, nobody out. We saw Maddux do it earlier very well, working away from a left-hander. That fastball just screaming in at the knees. Strike 2.
Well, I've watched Bobby Cox manage a lot of games setting the dugout as his opposition, and when you're in the 3, 4, 5 hole in his lineup, he normally allows you to drive that run in. He doesn't want you to take a shot to right field necessarily in this situation with your 3-hole hitter up there.
And again, as we mentioned earlier tonight, if you were late joining us, a big bat out of this Atlanta lineup with Andres Galarraga starting his 3-game suspension tonight. Javier Lopez, the cleanup man, next. That's a called third strike, belt high. Chipper Jones could not react. He is Randy Johnson's only 2 strikeouts in this game.
Well, Chipper has a tough time right-handed. Although he's hit .322 this year, he has a tough time pulling the trigger on some fastball. This ball right down the middle of the plate. I don't know what he can be looking for. He has to be looking for a breaking ball there with 2 strikes, which you can't do with a guy that throws 96. The ball's right down the middle.
Now remember, Javier Lopez swung at the first pitch last time and turned on a ball to left field for an RBI. This time he takes the slider inside, ball 1. 3 RBIs away from 100. Javier Lopez, career high was 69 RBIs last year.
Craig Biggio really cheating towards second base. He ends up right behind this runner here, Gerald Williams. Watch as he jostle him back and forth, trying to keep him from getting a big primary lead. And then he ends up leaving him right as the pitcher delivers.
You could hear the grunt on the fastball that came in strike 2. Hitters used to talk about the intimidating grunt of Nolan Ryan. We heard Randy Johnson let that one go.
Well, what happens there when you're Nolan or Randy, the ball gets to you before you finish hearing the grunt.
It's like that sonic boom thing, huh? There he goes up high to take a hit away from Lopez. And on high bouncing balls like that, infielders will tell you the lights can give them a problem.
He acts like he's hurting over there a little bit. He's had shoulder problems for the last 3 years, but here the ball really gets up. What happened there, never got himself gathered, never got his feet underneath him, and wasn't able to elevate.
2 outs now, runner still at second. Andrew Jones, the batter, walked his first time. Takes the breaking ball outside low, ball 1. Well, Javi Lopez, the only man with that hit with the runner in scoring position. Since then, they're 0 for 8. And how many times do you get 8 at-bats in the first 3 innings against Randy Johnson with anybody in scoring position? Neither team has cashed in its opportunities yet. Especially the Astros, who have 6 base hits already. 2-0 pitch. And the backdoor breaking ball stays outside. Ray Colburn, a right-hander, on deck. Teams have split the first 2 games of this series. Astros 4, Braves 3. Monday night coming from behind. make John Smoltz a loser. Billy Wagner got the save. Leitenberg saved it last night after blowing one Monday night, getting Denny Nagel a win. And for Randy Johnson, his third walk of the game. He'll face Colburn now. This has been a 50-50 proposition for these two ball clubs. They have split the 6 games they've played in Houston this year. Colburn, who came over from Colorado for a player to be named later after pitcher David Cortez was ruled injured, bouncing out to third base in a situation just like this first time up. 2 on, 2 out. Colburn, of course, picked up by the Braves in a similar situation last year on the 14th of August. Bobby Cox unhappy about that one, but he was happy with Colburn last year as he had 278 down the stretch. 1-1 pitch. He was hacking at a pretty good rip. John Schuerholz has never shied away from pulling the necessary triggers here in Atlanta, has he?
No, they've assembled a great staff here, from right on from John Schuerholz all the way down. Stan Katzen, actually, who makes a lot of the financial decisions. I can remember growing up in Georgia where Atlanta was called Losersville. And all of a sudden, over the last, not all of a sudden, but over a long period of time, with that man's, beginning with that man as general manager, Bobby Cox, and then bringing him back to manage the club, and Schuerholz in the front office. This has become, in my opinion, the best organization in baseball. You know, I've noticed his wife Karen sitting with him a whole lot more the second half of the season. Maybe she's got a little input there. They always do. You know, that's a good baseball lady right there, Karen and John Schuerholz. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Colburn. Colburn getting some pretty good hacks in this at bat. You fouled 2 pitches straight back against Randy Johnson. That's saying something. Well, Colburn, when we faced him, we did not want to throw him fastballs. Randy Johnson throws fastballs to anybody, but Colburn, not a good breaking ball hitter. That's why he's so good coming off the bench. People coming right at you with a fastball, hitting very well with runners in scoring position. But he'll swing at a lot of bad balls. 2-2. There's one. And a breaking ball down low for the strikeout. Randy Johnson gets his first 2 strikeout innings. And the last time Jeff Bagwell led off like he will in the 4th, it was in the 2nd. He took it the other way, and this game's been 1-1 ever since. The top of the 4th on ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. Don't forget, the Mets and the Padres are coming up later. And earlier today, under the supervision of the Arthur Anderson accounting firm, kids from local boys and girls clubs delivered ballots for the 98 Players' Choice Awards to our clubhouses here in Atlanta. Winners will be announced live on ESPN Friday, October 30th during the broadcast of the 98 Players' Choice Awards from Walt Disney World in Orlando. So the boys were busy with their ballots today, and you'll find out October 30th who the players put on their ballots today. Jeff Bagwell leads off. I'd vote for him. He's the kind of opposing player you utterly respect. 1 homer away from 30 now. He rips one up to center as Maddux got the pitch up. Leadoff man aboard for Houston, 3rd time in a row. Here's John Buccigross again.
Bob, it's not Lonnie Smith right over Brian Harper in the 91 World Series, but it's pretty close. Check out Ray Durham. Boom! On Chris Hoyles. Hoyles hangs on as the White Sox are holding on 3-2. Baltimore has lost 9 in a row.
And I guess amen now. That's so be it for their playoff hopes with that bad streak. Actually, the Orioles have fallen behind Toronto because of that recent bad streak of theirs. Moises Alou, an opposite field double last time, and then on a bizarre play, hit on the back at third base by a bouncing ball. Maddux very hittable tonight. Slow roller, only one play. They have to play behind the lead runner, and Alou's gone at first. Jeff Bagwell sliding into second. Ray, we mentioned the 30 home run mark. He's one away. He had 43 last year, 31 in 96, 39 is the league MVP in 94. So he's going to have 4 out of 5 30 home run seasons.
Well, I would have never thought that the Astros would have had a better offensive player than Jeff Bagwell in any season. And Moises Alou has put up better numbers than Bagwell, but I still think he's probably the most respected hitter in this lineup.
And he would have had 5 in a row were it not for the hand injury that kept him out of almost 50 games in 1995.
Can you imagine? I'm just sitting here thinking about how devastating offensively Bagwell has been, and then you look at these numbers and think there's somebody on your ball club that has a better year.
Carl Everett
Looked like he was playing softball.
Yeah, doing a little bailing here.
Watch Carl Everett here. He actually steps away from this ball, setting him up, thinking the pitch is inside, and that's what he's doing. Gets right on top of the plate, then he moves back thinking that he set him up for the pitch inside, and he goes away with him. You don't set Greg Maddux up.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Now they set up inside. That time he was almost standing on home plate.
Right on top of it. I don't know what he's thinking.
Well, some hitters say, I'm never going to change anything because I'm an opposing pitcher.
Look at this. He's standing right there on top of the plate trying to think. Maybe that's why Everett has hit 300 this year, and I like to see hitters make adjustments. But man,
he got jammed because he was right up on the plate. And a pop fly to Andrew Jones for the second out. So Carl Everett's trying everything. He hit the ball the other way last time, bounced out to Jones after hitting it sharply. And a soft fly ball here to center field.
Well, Maddux comes right in there on him, and the ball just stays in there, doesn't move back over the plate. Couldn't get the bat head out on him.
So the Maddux shuffle by Carl Everett pays off in a fly ball, and here's Sean Berry. He got the base hit last time that hit Moises Alou by third base.
And Maddux doesn't walk a lot of people.
Runner goes. No play at third. Bagwell with his 17th steal.
And that's a great play, because what I was going to say is a lot of people don't talk about running with 2 outs. You run here and you put pressure on the third baseman. He breaks toward the line. Now you can score on a pass ball. You see the big hole there between third and short. But what you also do is you make the pitcher go at this hitter right here. Doesn't have a runner on second base. With a runner on second, Maddux sometimes works hard, pitches around that next hitter.
And if you're wondering, does Greg Maddux ever throw a wild pitch? Well, he does have 3 this year. Probably on splitters.
Well, when your ball moves that much, if you happen to release it and hold on to it a little bit too long, then the ball is going to be somewhere in the dirt. And with that much rotation and sink on it, the ball can carry them all which ways.
Outfielder on to the right. He goes that way. Tough play there for Colburn. That was not easy. Astros waste the leadoff base hit. They leave Bagwell at third. And the pitching duel we anticipated is now really shaping up.
Chasing history, Destination 62. Likely McGuire's last at bat of the night, and look where it goes. He golfs it into the upper deck. 58th homer of the year, 4 away from 62.
And it's the 2nd of September.
He's locked in. He is locked in. He just wants a pitch to hit. Throw him something over the plate, and he's going to hit it a long doggone way.
The good news for pitchers, the Cardinals are off tomorrow. The Reds, who have dominated St. Louis this year, come into Busch for 3 over the weekend. And guess who comes in Monday? Sammy and the Cubs. That record could be history by this time next week now.
Well, at this pace, they're going to obliterate it. It's going to end up with 70 home runs. My goodness.
Lesko the batter. And Ray, earlier tonight, you talked about the angle Randy gets on left-handed batters. He does not even pitch off the first base side of the rubber. He's over on the third base side. So how does he do it?
You're right. He's right there leaning on the third base side, and I guess he feels more comfortable over there. Most hitters, most left-handed pitchers that drop down will come from the first base side of the rubber. Randy's all the way over on the third base side, which makes the angle less acute, but when your arm span is about 8 feet, look right here how he's over on the left side of the rubber. He could move over another 8 or 9 inches, which would make his angle much tougher.
Look at Klesko go up the middle for a base hit. It could happen Monday on ESPN. Sammy in the Cubs, Mac in the Cards, 2 o'clock Eastern. Maybe the ultimate Labor Day ever. As the Cardinals and the Cubs, one of the great rivalries in all of sports, the ballpark buzzes just for that reason. Busch Stadium will be going absolutely crazy Monday. You saw some of it Sunday night when the Braves were there. That will be something Monday if Mac or Sammy is sitting on the verge of that record. Here's Graffinino. I don't know. Maybe they'll both do it on the same day. Stranger things have happened. I would say Sammy's got the edge for the inside the park homer. No balls and 1 strike to Tony Graffinino.
Those guys that get inside the park home runs are the people that the outfielders play real shallow on, and they make a catch. These guys are playing against the wall with these guys. They have no chance to get them inside the park.
Runner goes and a swing and a foul. Klesko on the move for the 2nd time tonight. He had a steal a couple of innings ago, his 5th of the year.
Well, I think that steal was a botched hit and run, and here's a direct hit and run. Watch how late he starts. He almost delivers the ball home before Klesko even breaks to go, and that's what you do. You got to make him deliver the ball home when you're on first base on a hit and run situation. You got to make him pitch.
No balls, 2 strikes. Pitcher on deck. Graffinino, fly ball to center. Klesko won't be able to go anywhere except back to the bag. 1 out. Well, you never know. 1-1 ball game. This could be a 2-1 final. If Maddux lays down a bunt here, it could make a big difference in this ball game. So with 1 out, you'd almost be surprised if he's swinging away here.
He's not going to swing. He'll bunt here with 1 out and give the leadoff hitter a chance to drive in a run. Bobby could hit and run here, but I feel certain he's going to bunt him. Watch how Maddux, again on deck, Maddux gets his bat out front way early.
The ball gets away on a throw to first, and out at second is Klesko. It ricocheted right back to Bagwell. A big break for the Braves. Or excuse me, for Houston.
This was a big break. The ball hit on the concrete facade over there. As the ball gets away, caroms and hits the concrete facade, comes right back to Bagwell, makes a great off-balance throw, perfect throw. That's unreal, and you got to talk about luck. Now this tag right there, late, whoa, up around the shoulder. It looked like to me he beat that. Now I know he beat it.
Well, you talked about the high tag last inning of Gutierrez. Maddux takes a fastball at the knee, strike 1.
Look at the concrete facade there, and somehow, even with that ball, that concrete angling toward right field, the ball came back the opposite direction. I guess right there where you see that rounded cylinder where the tarp is, the ball kind of hit right in the corner. But look at this tag. Again, instead of dropping the glove straight down, he kind of sweeps the glove, ends up on his shoulder.
Now Maddux strikes out. 4 Ks in the game for Randy Johnson, and we are still tied as this thing, in bizarre fashion, still shaping up. It's a pretty good 1-1 game.
Atlanta with the game tied 1-1. Larry Poncino, the second base umpire, I was talking about how out. This is in real time. Look how he managed to make this play. Boom. Looks like a bang-bang play, and when you slow it down, we always get it right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't get a replay look, and I tell you, after managing for 2 years and going back and looking at a lot of tapes that I thought people were out or safe on in my favor, I realize how few they really do miss.
Top of the 5th. Brad Osmus for the Astros. Base hit up the middle. 8 hits against Maddux now, who obviously is struggling with location. We've seen him leave more pitches up tonight than normal. And that's 2 for 2 for Brad Osmus in the number 8 hole. The big question is now, can Randy Johnson bunt him over? Randy Johnson on the year, 1 for 20 with the bat without a sacrifice bunt.
Well, they teach you to throw the fastball up in the strike zone where people will pop it up. That's something that Maddux doesn't do real well.
It's a breaking ball, foul tip, strike 1.
And it's very difficult with a breaking ball that goes down like Maddux does, or a sinker that goes down, to get the ball in fair territory. You tend to do just like Johnson did, bunt it right into the ground or right about home plate.
He deadens it beautifully. That was a breaking ball. Chipper Jones on to Graffinino. Outstanding bunt by Randy Johnson.
Here's a great bunt. Got his knees flexed, very nice. Deadens the ball as he catches it with his right hand. Look how he just deadens that ball. Long way from that ball, even though he is bent over and knees bent. Still about 5 feet away from that ball.
One of the first guys to congratulate him, Shane Reynolds. Top of the order now, Craig Biggio, 1 for 2. Lead run standing on second base here in the top of the 5th inning, a 1-1 game. Houston surprisingly out-hitting Atlanta 8-3. I mean, we thought each team might have a hit or 2 at this point of the game. We never dreamed 8. This one is well hit. Left field. It is gone from Biggio. His RBI total shoots up to 80 on his 19th homer, and Houston leads it 3-1.
Well, Bobby, Craig Biggio is like a 3-hole hitter. He has ability to hit 20, 25 home runs. As you mentioned earlier, 40 doubles, and he can drive in runs. When you start driving in 80 runs as a leadoff hitter, you've done a lot. Here, just a fastball again, up in the strike zone. That is not vintage Greg Maddux. That ball moves back over the plate instead of being down around his, he knows that ball's out of here. Instead of being down around his shins, that ball ends up right over the middle of the plate, knee high.
He had given up only 10 home runs in 219 innings coming in. Tonight he's given up 2 in less than 5 innings of work, as Bagwell and Biggio get him. Houston by 2. Gutierrez the batter now, 2 balls, no strikes.
This is a tough lineup to have to wade through. You said earlier they've already scored 769 runs, which is first coming in to tonight's game. Their average was second in the league. They were second in doubles, first in stolen bases.
Biggio, by the way, just tired Chipper Jones with 112 runs scored atop the league.
You're looking at 4 men in the lineup that are going to drive in over 80 runs.
This ball well hit. The other way, Graffinino on a couple of hops. That's the second out. And Craig Biggio, he's a player who had a chance to go elsewhere 2 years ago and make a lot more money. St. Louis wanted him. There were other ball clubs that wanted him. But to stay with Bagwell and what he felt was a good nucleus for the future, Craig Biggio took less money to stay in a town that wasn't drawn real big for baseball at that time, because he wanted to be a part of this thing, and it certainly is making him look like a pretty smart guy right now. Derek Bell swings and misses. Strike 1.
Well, I've had an up-close look at the emergence of the Houston Astros and their growth as a ball club. As a coach with Cincinnati in '95, when we won our division, '94 with a great record before the strike. Houston with the great players, Biggio and Bagwell, but not believing that they could win. Then they just emerged. They added more people. Certainly the addition to the ball club of Alou, of Derek Bell. And they just kept getting better and better, Bobby, and now they believe that they can beat anybody. You add Randy Johnson and his warrior-type demeanor, as we were told before the game by Larry Durker. This ball club has become a complete ball club and maybe as good as anybody in the game.
1-2 pitch to Pell. Over the mound, charging Ozzie Guillen for the third out. But a leadoff hit by Osmus. A one-out home run by Craig Biggio. And the Astros explode into the lead. They now lead Maddux and the Braves 3-1 after 4.5.
A couple of things to say. Leo just rocking as usual. Greg Maddux, you mentioned about him not getting the ball down.
Randy Johnson gets up and throws out Ozzie Guillen to start the bottom of the 5th inning. Ozzie Guillen 0 for 3. Greg Maddux, an outstanding defensive pitcher who has won 8 consecutive Gold Gloves. And Randy Johnson, not the finesseful defensive guy, but at 6'11", he can make some plays other guys can't.
You know, especially over his head. It's not so hard for him to get up. I want to see him get down.
Gerald Williams has had a perfect night so far with a walk, a run, a single, 2 steals. Johnson uncomfortable coming off the rubber. He'll start over. No swing. Down at first base, says crew chief Steve Ripley. Chipper Jones to follow, Javier Lopez. This could be an important part of this ball game for Atlanta to put a couple of hits together. I mean, if this guy shuts you down, the middle of your lineup doesn't bat again until the 8th inning. Here's the 2-0. High in the air, playable left side, Sean Berry. Now a foul ball, 2 outs. Bases empty with 2 down, bottom of the 5th. John Buchagras. What's happening now?
Bob, we go to Detroit. It's all tied 1-1, top of the 6th. Will Clark, 34 years old, his 34th double of the year. That breaks the 1-1 tie, makes it 2-1. Ivan Rodriguez follows a 2-run homer, and the Rangers lead in the top of the 6th, 4-1.
How many times have we seen Will Clark double the left center? Dozens and dozens. Texas 2.5 back of Anaheim at the start of the night. Chipper dashes one. Biggio a nifty little pickup. And that quickly the Braves are gone. And that's the first 1-2-3 inning for either pitcher tonight. Bagwell 2 for 2 with a homer. He's the Houston leadoff man. 3-1 Astros. Well, normally on a night when these two are pitching, you don't want to leave your seats very long. You could miss 2 or 3 outs very quickly. Bottom 6 coming up after this half when Bagwell, Alou, and Everett will bat for Houston. Maddux back to work. A frustrating night for him. And as we mentioned, his last 3 starts, not that great. Got a no decision in St. Louis Friday night when the Cards got 3 off him early. Bagwell pops it up a mile high right side. Profanino is out there calling off Gerald Williams for the first down here in the 6th inning. Tonight's copyrighted telecast presented by authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without expressed written consent. Bob Carpenter, Ray Knight. And a guy who used to watch Ray a lot as a youngster down in Georgia. Got the war paint on and everything tonight for this matchup. Moises Alou, tired of waiting, steps out. Moises 1 for 2 with a double tonight. Jam job by Maddux, up the middle it goes. Is Craig getting ready for his first 1-2-3? Randy Johnson just did it. That's 2 outs here in the 6th with Carl Everett standing in the way.
You mentioned how hard the Astros have hit Maddux with the 9 hits in the 5 innings. Over the course of this season, Maddux in 218 innings, only 169 hits has he given up and only 33 base on balls. So that's 202 total base runners, 218 innings, and that's phenomenal.
Well, there answers our question. Another 1-2-3 inning. Each pitcher's now done it. Javier Lopez will lead off in the bottom of the 6th inning. Atlanta may be running out of time here early. Randy Johnson's last half inning was 5 pitches and getting Guillen, Williams, and Chipper in the 5th. And then Maddux comes out and throws 4 pitches to retire Bagwell, Alou, and Everett. Economy starting to be the name of this game as we get through the middle innings.
That's what happens when people start settling down with their mechanics, Bobby, and start feeling it, getting the ball over the plate, throwing strikes. The hitters know it, so they go up there aggressive.
Bobby Lopez, the only Atlanta RBI of the night. It's his 97th. Andrew Jones, Greg Colburn to follow. Randy Johnson has retired 5 in a row. It's his best streak of the night. You think he smells that lead? High strike. Lopez gone. Bobby Cox really unhappy about that one. Strikeout number 5 for Randy Johnson.
Well, Bobby hasn't been happy all night, but watch Osmus right here set it up, and his fastball is right there, below the mask. That pitch is a strike. Lopez thinks the ball's up, but that's because he didn't see it very long.
Gary Darling the call. Yeah, kind of hard to argue about a laser, isn't it? Here's Andrew Jones. Look at that thing. I don't blame him for not having a scoreboard readout of the miles per hour here. Jones with a couple of walks tonight. Randy Johnson coming right after him. And this guy's pitching right now like he's at the clubhouse turn and is getting ready for the stretch.
Well, he is the most dominant pitcher in the game today when he has his stuff together. By that, strikeouts.
Breaking ball for the strikeout, and that's 6, including 3 of the last 6. John Butchergrass, more highlights tonight.
Destination 62, 3 words, slow pitch softball. Mark McGwire, number 59, the 3rd most ever. Maris 61, Ruth 60, McGwire 59, 3 away from the record. Doesn't play tomorrow, home against the Reds on Friday.
The most coveted item in the state of Missouri now, Cardinal tickets for this weekend. They come home to play the Reds 3, the Cubs 2. Wow.
He's not going to make it to the weekend, man. He's going to hit like 3 in one game, and he's going to hit. I'm going to have to go up to like 72. I said 70 early. He's going to hit about 72.
Every time Cub fans think they've got a chance for their guy to pass McGwire, Mac just goes crazy. This ball turned on. Colburn turning on that one. We'll have a Labor Day holiday treat for you on ESPN Monday. Would McGwire break it that day? Would he already be there? Would he be on the verge? He's on the verge right now with 59. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You know, I asked Mac, what was it, 3 nights ago? And there's the strikeout. Colburn gone. Randy strikes out the side. McGwire said, I never thought I'd have 55 at the end of August. He's got 59 on the 2nd of September, and Johnson's looking pretty good, too. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball, a couple of guys starting to kick it into overdrive now as we get into the 7th inning. Let's have a look at the Astros in-game box. Biggio a big night. Bagwell almost identical. Craig has a couple of RBIs. Well, the Killer Bees, I mean, that's the story of this club. And Biggio's homer gives them the 2-run lead going into the top of the 7th inning. They've even lost 3 runners on the bases, so this could be a much bigger advantage for Houston than it is right now. Crowd here cheering as they just posted on the board McGwire's 2nd home run, number 59. John Berry for the Astros. Out into right center. On the run, Andrew Jones. It is out of here. Another Houston homer, the 3rd of the night, and they lead Maddux and the Braves 4-1. And 2 of the homers opposite field by big, strong right-handers.
Again, another pitch up in the strike zone, right down the middle, belt high. Sean Berry drove it out there, just barely clearing the wall, but you just don't see this many fly balls hit against Maddux, much less home runs.
Bouncer up the middle. Osmus. That ball cut off by Ozzie Guillen. Nice play. Sean Berry's 12th of the year. RBI 44. Ray, this has to encourage the Astros that Sean does this against a good right-hander.
Well, it really does. Bill Spires going out. Sean Berry, I've always felt, was an everyday ball player. Hitting over 20 home runs, driving in 80 runs for the Astros. In years past, but Billy Spires' offense has put him in, and the injuries to Berry has put Berry into a platoon role. Coming into this game, the third baseman for the Astros had scored 105 runs and driven in 85 to this point. The center fielders, Everett and Hidalgo, had scored 90 runs and driven in 95 runs.
Randy Johnson, a bouncer out to short. Ozzie Guillen throws him out, and 2 very quick outs now after the home run by Berry.
Just to finish that thought, talking about production, when you have a leadoff hitter driving in probably 90, 95 runs, a 3-hole hitter in Bell going to drive in 100 plus, 4-hole hitter in Bagwell driving in 100, a Lou driving in 130, and then your center field position and your third base position producing 200 runs each. No wonder you're leading the doggone league. And you talk about the Braves offense and the Colorado offense. What about the Astro offense? To heck with pitching.
And they're not bad there either. Their team ERA second best to Atlanta. Greg Biggio 6 for 11 against Atlanta pitching in the series. So here's a guy. You look at what he does here. Start thinking about October. Here's a man who might be an NLCS MVP somewhere along the line. After striking out in the first, a base hit up the middle in the third. Doubled off first on the ball he was running on that was lined by Bell. And then the 2-run homer in the 5th inning. Have batted balls into the stands ever been more valuable than they are this year? 1 ball, 1 strike. I was out in the seats in Busch Stadium on our Sunday night game the other night, talking to a gentleman who caught a McGuire batting practice home run, and a guy came up and tried to slip him a C note while we were chatting. $100 for a batting practice baseball. He wasn't taking it. 2 balls, 1 strike. Then it went up to 150 before he finally told the guy to get lost. 2-2. Earlier tonight, we talked about home field advantage in the playoffs. In essence, the Astros gain a game on the Braves, and maybe San Diego as the Mets play there later tonight on ESPN if they hold on to win this game. 2-2 from Maddux to Biggio. Got him on the corner. 7th inning stretch time in Atlanta. Greg Maddux having a scuffling night, getting the ball up, and he's down 4-1. Klesko leads off against Randy Johnson, and it's a fastball that misses. And the count 2-0 here, bottom 7. 8 straight retired by Randy Johnson. The last 3 on strikes. Well hit, right at Biggio. 9 in a row. They'll pinch it in a moment for Maddux. Left-hander John Rocker throwing for Atlanta. Despite the fact that Gutierrez, Bell, and Bagwell with Al Lou are the next 4 Houston hitters due up. Eddie Perez will step to the on-deck circle and hit for Maddux. Ironically, the man he usually catches. Graffinino, couple of fly balls tonight, 0 for 2. I wonder if Bobby Cox considers this game just about over. How often do you see a manager, pinch hit his backup catcher in the 7th inning?
Not too often, and you don't see Greg Maddux with 78 pitches out of a ball game either. That's what his pitch count is up to this point.
Here's the 1-1 pitch. And right off the end of the bat, a foul ball, 1-2.
Talking about the dominance of Randy Johnson from 94 to 97, 56 and 12 His 11 losses this year almost eclipses the 12 losses he had in the 4 previous seasons.
Now, weak little pop-up. Bagwell the catch, 2 down. Perez coming up. Hey, how about this? There was 1 point last year when Randy was really going well in Seattle, when the Mariners had won all but 6 of his starts over 3 years.
Yeah.
Almost every time he took the mound, they would end up winning the ballgame.
You just look at his demeanor, his presence. Larry Dierker talked about that this afternoon. Brought a warrior mentality to his young pitching staff. Shane Reynolds, 28 years old, but everybody else on the pitching staff, young. Larry Dierker there, former great pitcher himself.
Well, Eddie Perez was a decoy. We'll give you the true pitch hitter in a moment. ESPN Sunday Night Football coming your way. The Raiders and the Chiefs on Sunday night at 8:15. And Mike Patrick, Joe Theismann, Paul McGuire teaming up. Jeff George and Elvis Gerbach, the quarterback matchup. And then it's Drew Bledsoe and John Elway. Monday Night Football. The Patriots at Denver against the Super Bowl champion Broncos. Walt Weiss, as we told you earlier tonight, injured. Mark DeRosa was hitting .269 with 8 home runs at Double-A Greenville. He gets the call. Welcome to the big leagues, young man. Here's Randy Johnson, your pitcher. He goes up and takes a pretty good hack.
Yeah, after facing Randy Johnson, everything's going to be easy from now on. He's going to say, my goodness.
He didn't see this in Greenville, South Carolina.
No.
No balls, 1 strike. That is a late swing.
Well, you see a lot of kids when you're in A-ball and Double-A that throw hard. You just don't see a lot of them that throw hard and have command and then can break that slider off down around his shoe top.
That was 97 miles an hour. Fastball fouled away. The last time the Braves hit a ball out of the infield, oh wow, 99. The last time they hit a ball out of the infield, Graffinino's fly ball to center back in the 4th. Their last hit was Klesko, the man right before that. This would be 11 in a row, and that's it. On the strikeout in the dirt, Osmus will throw to Bagwell, and this game speeds into the 8th inning. He is absolutely overpowering and dominating right now. 4-1 Houston behind the big unit. 4-1 Houston, top of the 8th inning. Astros are into the Braves bullpen now, and our pitching summary brought to you by Sherwin-Williams Paint and Wallpaper Stores. Randy Johnson still in the ball game. Maddux no, but look at the 10 hits, and he failed by 1 to reach the 2,000 strikeout plateau in his major league career. Randy Johnson is retired. The last 11 Atlanta batters. Gutierrez looking to bunt his way on. High pop foul. Javi Lopez for the out. It comes against John Rocker, who has not been scored upon his last 9 times out for Atlanta.
John Rocker, young left-hander, great fastball, 95, 96 mile an hour fastball, 180 earned run average from Macon, Georgia. They're really high on this young man. Look at those 16 hits, 30 innings pitched. Has walked a few people, but 33 strikeouts in 30 innings. He and Rudy Cienez has really strengthened this bullpen with their late season surge.
He had a 1.42 ERA at AAA. They brought him up when Mark Wohlers went on the DL. That was back in May. Mark Wohlers now on the DL for a reason given as inability to pitch. There's some new Braves. Odalis Perez on the left. Bruce Chen, a couple of left-handers. Gary Lightenberg blew a save in St. Louis the other night. Blew one here Monday night. Got one last night.
Looks like he blew a bubble and forgot to bring it back.
Is he enough going into the playoffs? That's the magical question around here. 1 ball, 1 strike to Bell. Derek 0 for 3 tonight. He's 1 for 4 as he lashes one to left field.
There's been a lot of talk in the local newspapers questioning Larry Dierker's reasoning for pitching Randy Johnson tonight, with this game not meaning a lot in their minds. I think it means a tremendous amount for both ball clubs with that record, the best record in your league, as well as psychologically is what I'm trying to say. When you face a guy that throws as hard and is as dominating as Randy Johnson, it plants a seed. And you do not want to face that man. You do not want to go through Houston for the playoffs. And the Braves are seeing that. Dierker knows that, having been an overpowering right-handed pitcher in the National League. And people just don't want to have to face you. So I think it's a big advantage for the Astros to pitch Johnson tonight as opposed to passing him up and not letting the Braves see him.
Ball in the dirt, gets away down to second base. Bell. Lopez late with the throw. Probably a wild pitch on a nasty breaking ball in the dirt. The chipper, a tough time against Randy Johnson, 0 for 3 with a couple of Ks. That's one thing you do to this lineup. You turn him around and make him bat right-handed. Now, obviously, Galarraga would make a difference. But Randy Johnson is not shy about pitching inside. I can foresee a little firework action with Galarraga leaning out over the plate. Andres Galarraga has set a modern-day Braves record by being hit by pitches tonight. Ryan Klesko's been on base twice against Randy. He's been able to hang in a bit. Galarraga, on the heels of that brawl after Darren Dreifert hit him for the second time in a week, starts his 3-game suspension with this ball game tonight. It'll continue into the weekend when the Braves go to Shea Stadium. There's a breaking ball in there, 2-1.
Well, I think that on these suspensions that there's too many people being suspended for going to the mound. Sometimes in cases where people drill you time and time again. Now, what else can you do as a hitter? Bunt the ball and run over his back as they did in the old days?
Low and inside, 3-1.
I mean, I just think sometimes there's situations that call for it. And I know that a lot of people out there don't think this is part of baseball. But having been there, it's a part of not your manhood, but people throw at you after somebody has hit home run after home run, and you're not the one that necessarily hit the home run, and then they taunt you.
Then the other side of the argument is where pitchers say, hey, these guys are leaning out over the plate. We can't even throw inside anymore. And if you throw off the plate, you hit somebody.
I think that's the umpire's fault. I think that you have to quit giving that ball 4 or 5 inches away and reestablish the strike zone in the inside corner, and then you'll have people quit diving out there for that outside pitch.
3-2 to Bagwell. Swing and a miss on a breaking ball down. Rocker gets the second out here in the top of the 8th inning, and he'll face Moises Alou. Bagwell 2 for 4 now.
This shows you about the power of this young man. Grew up in Statesboro, Georgia, resides in Macon. Great slider there to complement his 94 and 95 mile an hour fastball.
Yeah, we've been down to Statesboro on ESPN for college basketball down at Georgia Southern. That's a gorgeous part of this state. They're going to walk Alou and take their chances with Carl Everett. That'll put 2 on, 2 out. This will be the first walk issued by an Atlanta pitcher tonight. This ball game, of course, the first half of our Wednesday night doubleheader. You'll see a couple of other contending teams tonight. The Mets are in the thick of the wild card race. The Padres on top of the West, like these two, jockeying for home field advantage. Mike Piazza makes his return to Southern California. Tony Gwynn, that hitting machine, batting .328. It's the Padres and the Mets, Armando Reynoso, Andy Ashby. Our matchup is Gary Thorne and Joe Morgan waiting for you out there at Qualcomm Stadium. Carl Everett 0 for 3 tonight. Bell at second, Alou at first. Good speed for the Astros. We told you they're the best running team in the National League. And a high bouncer out to Guillen. The shovel to Graffinino. Houston has stranded 5 runners tonight, but after 7.5, they lead at 4-1. Top of the order coming up for Atlanta. Bottom of the 8th inning, Randy Johnson. Well, he's on that home stretch now. He's retired 11 straight. The last man to get a base hit, Ryan Klesko, leading off the 4th. Faces Ozzie Guillen, Gerald Williams, and Chipper Jones here. And that's a base hit down the left field line by Ozzie Guillen. Pat Corrales tells him to hold it first. And the Braves have Williams, Chipper, and Lopez coming up.
Randy Johnson mentioned his dominance tonight. Look at these pitches. Slider down on Chipper, fastball right down the middle, comes right back with another slider down, then a fastball away to Maddux. And he comes back with serious cheese right there, then another slider to, man, they all these strikeouts. And then to, what's this young man's name?
That was the rookie, DeRosa. Gerald Williams takes one in there. Bottom of the 8th inning. Houston has been the comeback team this year. They've come from behind to win 43 times in '98. Up the middle, Johnson knocks it down. That'll get him an out. That's what he's looking for at this point of the game. Runner at second, one out. Let's check in again with John Buccigross.
Well, let's go to Boston. Sox down 3-1, bottom 7. It's all about the Benjamin. Mike Benjamin, nothing but net. The Sox tie it up 3-3, bottom of the 7th. Lead the Rangers by 8 in the wild card.
Long way to go for anybody to catch the Bo Sox. Chipper Jones 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts tonight. Backdoor breaking ball spins outside, ball 1. Braves need another hit, and then they need somebody to blast one against Randy Johnson, who's given up 3 home runs as an Astro in 56 innings.
With this whole Brave lineup, you mentioned Andres Galarraga not being in the ballpark tonight because of the suspension, but they're not even the same ball club without him in the lineup. He balances the club so well, and the attitude, I feel, changes even around batting practice.
Looking to make it 6-1 as a Houston Astro. How about a guy who goes 11-10 for Seattle? Could end up a 20-game winner. 2 balls, 1 strike. I know John and Joe were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. You and I talked about it before the game. Now that interleague play is such a part of the baseball landscape, they just need to go ahead and combine all of these statistics. As far as we're concerned right now, Randy Johnson is 16-11, about to win number 17. 2-2 pitch. Chipper late, and he's gone on strikes for the 3rd time tonight. That's number 9 for Randy Johnson. And the Braves in-game box, well, it won't show you a whole lot other than a Javier Lopez first-inning single for a base hit and for an RBI, and really nothing at all since then. Only 4 players with 1 hit. Randy Johnson, a couple of early walks. Andrew Jones has 2 of the 3 that he's given tonight. But since the 4th inning, he has shifted into a different gear. Lopez unable to catch up with a high pitch.
The most dominant pitcher I've faced was Nolan Ryan, obviously with all the strikeouts and all his no-hitters. Randy Johnson is that same type of pitcher. When he's on, he can dominate you, capable of pitching a no-hitter anytime he goes out there. Closest thing to Nolan Ryan I've seen.
No balls, 2 strikes. Chipper Jones wearing the 0 for 4 collar tonight with 3 strikeouts. That'll make you want to get back onto the left side of the plate sometime soon. 0-2 pitch. Got it. 10 strikeouts for Randy Johnson. The 99th 10 strikeout game of his career. 4-1 Houston. Top of the 9th inning at Turner Field in Atlanta. Bob Carpenter, Ray Knight, ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. As dominating as Randy Johnson has been tonight, and that's his 99th 10 strikeout game, as he blows away Javier Lopez with a breaking ball. You still have to marvel at what some other pitchers have done. Nolan Ryan, 215 10-plus strikeout games. Nobody else in triple figures until Randy does it next time.
Well, look at all those names that are going to be are either in the Hall of Fame or going to be in the Hall of Fame. There with Clemens and Randy Johnson. If he can amass enough wins, a lot of times it's longevity. 34 years old. As we see Norm Charlton in the game for the Braves.
Left-hander, one of the old nasty boys from Cincinnati, trying to make a comeback with Atlanta. They tinkered with his delivery down at Richmond after he had an ERA of almost 7 with the Orioles. He was real hittable. 46 hits, 25 walks in 35 innings for Baltimore. Braves needing some veteran help. Give him another chance. He faces Sean Berry, who laces one to left field, and Sean Berry has a 3-for-4 night.
Well, Charlton was a left-hander that made his living on throwing the ball hard. Not too many left-handers do that. It's been a tough transition for him to become a finesse pitcher. He used to throw 95, 96 along with Dibble and Randy Myers. Now he's around 88, 89, and then people seem to just wear him out.
There's Billy Spires, good enough to pinch run. How important does Larry Dierker think this game is? He's going to bring a guy out there who's hurt and let him run the bases and maybe try to get another run. He will also tape the fingers together on the outside of the batting glove.
I'm just wondering about who's going to play defense. I mean, at this point, 4-1, you're looking to get out. Although one run is important, I don't think he can throw with that hand like that. So
well, I would think Tim Bogar would come in and play third base in the 9th inning. Guy who can play really anywhere on the infield. Larry Dierker might need him. And the batter is Brad Osmus, who's had a good night, 2 for 3. They also have a third baseman they just called up today, Russ Johnson.
That's probably his choice. Very, very good defensive player. My thought is you make sure you have your best defense in the ball game. Barry also a good runner. But as you mentioned earlier, when he went to jump, he may have tweaked something, and that might be the reason for the move. And I think he can outrun Spire.
1 ball, 1 strike, and a breaking ball down and in. There's bad news for Atlanta. Billy Wagner is back healthy. He survived the line drive that hit him on the ear, resulting in the concussion. The big question for Houston is, who will be consistent getting the ball to Billy Wagner? They picked up Jay Powell from the Marlins. The setup role has kind of vacillated back and forth between Powell and Doug Henry. Larry Dierker kind of goes with the hot hand. What a good job this second-year manager has done. You know, a lot of people think it's so easy in the booth. Larry comes right down from the booth and to manage a ball club to a couple of division championships. 3 balls, 1 strike. Out to short. Ian, Rapinino, and they turn the 6-4-3. Randy Johnson will bat with 2 outs and the base is empty.
Got a fastball in on him, ground ball right to shortstop. Perfect little tailor-made, as we say so often. Spires going in hard with that hurt hand, with his hands up, which could be called illegal. Can't throw those hands anywhere.
Randy Johnson 0 for 2 with a sacrifice tonight. He sacrificed Brad Osmus to second base prior to the home run of Biggio. Now, Billy Spires doesn't play long tonight, but his uniform will look like he did. That'll even the count. 1 ball, 1 strike to Randy Johnson. Untape the fingers. Take off the glove. Talk to your platoon mate.
Tell you what, Randy, I said his hack was ugly. It's gotten a lot better since I've seen him. He's taken a lot more batting practice in the National League. Took 0, zip, none in the American League.
All those years in Hitter's Park and he never got to swing, huh? There goes the bat, and there go the Astros in the top of the 9th inning. A scoreless ninth for Norm Charlton. In the bottom of the 9th, Andrew Jones, Greg Colburn, and Ryan Klesko scheduled for Atlanta. ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by TheStreet.com. For addictive financial news and commentary, hit TheStreet.com. Well, the man nobody's been able to hit tonight, Randy Johnson, going for another complete game. His 99th 10-strikeout game on our Wagner game summary. The Astros get power from Bagwell, Biggio, and Berry. Evidently, Randy Johnson having some kind of problem now as he takes the rubber for the bottom of the 9th inning. Chipper Jones, 3 strikeouts and over. Astros did a good job of batting against Greg Maddux. The last thing Larry Dierker wants to do is take any chances with Randy Johnson. He's going to take him out, but he's got another pretty good left-hander to call on.
Yes, he does, and Dierker, having been a pitcher and a power pitcher, knows that there's no reason to push Randy Johnson. Give Wagner
10 strikeouts for Randy Johnson tonight. He walks 3, but nobody after the 3rd inning. It's up to Billy Wagner now. 26 saves this year, 58 in his still young Major League career. He just turned 27 on the 25th of July. Not as big as Randy Johnson by any means. So, Ray, now, how does he manage to generate the power that he does?
Well, he just has a lot of push in his legs, very strong lower body, and some people are just blessed with great arm action. He gets the most out of it, and Larry Dierker actually said, this is hard to believe after watching him throw the ball last year 95 miles an hour. Look how strong his quads are there. Dierker said that he actually was throwing better this year than he was when he got hurt.
And he got hurt in a very bizarre play. Kelly Stinnett of the Arizona Diamondbacks got him with a line drive back on July 15th. One of the ugliest things you could ever not want to see. It got him on the ear, did some damage to his ear. He suffered a concussion, and Ray, it's a miracle he wasn't hurt worse.
Well, it really is. I was actually, as you see there, returned from the disabled list August 6th, 17 punch outs and 10 innings pitched. I was hitting the head of the line drive pitching batting practice, and the doctor said if it had made a more of an impression on my temple, it moved the bone there for about a quarter of an inch, it could have killed me. And you look at that, that's only 4 or 5 inches from your temple, and a ball hit a lot harder than can be hit in batting practice.
Andrew Jones, the batter, first pitch foul ball out of play. Astros trying to take 2 out of 3 here in Atlanta, send a postseason message to this ball club, and bear out what everybody was talking about. Derek Bell said it the other night after their come from behind 4-3 win Monday. Hey, we can play with this team. We can deal with these guys unlike before.
Yeah, they can. And one thing about Wagner, and the only negative thing about bringing him in a game after Randy Johnson, is that's the only pitcher in baseball that Wagner might not be able to throw as hard as.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Evidently, when Randy Johnson took the mound, I don't know if there was a problem with digging in or something with his foot. He kept kind of pawing at the rubber. But it was very obvious to us by Larry Dierker's mannerisms. Hey, buddy, if you're not 100%, let's get you out of here and let Billy take care of business. Randy Johnson's ERA, by the way, including his 8 innings tonight, with Houston, down to 1.17. It was 4.33 when he left Seattle.
I just want to say this. When I saw him earlier in the year in that Kenny Lofton incident, he was not all there. He was throwing the ball 90, 91 miles an hour, didn't want to be in Seattle, had gone over the contract hassles there. Now you're seeing the real Randy Johnson.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Long one, left field. This ball is gone, and it's a 4-2 game. Andrew Jones with his 25th. RBI number 77. Atlanta's still alive if they can get one more base runner.
Well, Bobby, that's what I was alluding to after following Randy Johnson. Although Wagner throws the ball 96, 97, it's not like you're facing somebody tougher. His fastball is straighter. He's not as big, doesn't deliver the ball right on top of you. And that may be a factor later on in playoffs or any other time when Wagner follows Johnson.
Colburn lines to center. Right there, though, is Carl Everett for the first out. Now it's Klesko.
Yeah, Bobby never quits. He works all the time. You look at him there with those eyes squint.
All-time winningest Braves manager. We're told that Randy Johnson had a cramp in his left leg. Not a real warm evening in Atlanta. Because of the rain this afternoon, temperatures got down into the low 80s.
Well, that is no chance there. Klesko is so far off the plate that he can't reach that ball. Look at there. You just pitch him away on the outside part of the plate. He cannot reach that ball. There's no way unless he's diving straight to the plate. Look how far he is off the plate.
0-2 pitch.
But don't make a mistake. He likes the ball out away from him. Can drive the ball the opposite way, but there's about a 4 or 5 inch area out there that he can't get to.
He is deep in the box. And Billy Wagner's got him deep in the count. 0-2. Outside target. Held on a little bit too long. Ball 1. Last meeting of the year between these two teams until, well, that's where we insert the question mark. Atlanta would have only a 3-game lead in that home field advantage race over Houston with an Astro win tonight. San Diego coming up at 10:30 Eastern on ESPN. Andy Ashby 16-6. Armando Reynoso 5-1 for the Mets. He's been pretty good since he came back from the DL. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Way outside, ball 2. And, of course, a San Diego win following this Atlanta loss, if it holds up this way, would tie the Padres and the Braves. Did he go? No, says Mike Winters. Ball 3 to Klesko. The Braves don't have a whole lot left in terms of right-handed batting. Tony Graffinino is next. They have Eddie Perez and rookie infielder Wes Helms. Everybody else is left-handed. 3-2 pitch. Walked in on a fastball up and in. And the Braves will get the tying run to the plate.
Fastball just gets away from the target way outside, up and in, almost takes a few of those whiskers off, but that shows you him diving. You mentioned diving early. You got to dive if you're going to hit the outside part. Look at that. Ouch. That was closer than it looked.
Tony Graffinino 0 for 3. Foul on a play. Obviously, we have some time left before our 10:30 game. Mets San Diego. Stay tuned to ESPN. John Buccigross in the studio tonight. He will give you plenty of looks at the Sosa homer from this afternoon, and believe it or not, the 2 McGuire homers tonight that puts Mark McGuire at 59. Swing and a miss, 0-2. Pretty soon, you're going to see a replay of a home run that you might see for the rest of your life. No balls, 2 strikes, 1 on, 1 out. Graffinino hanging tough. There's Eddie Perez, put out there as a decoy 2 innings ago. He's really the only established right-handed bat they have left, other than the rookie Helms. Here's the 0-2. Got him, tailing down and away. The 11th Houston's strikeout tonight. Randy Johnson had 10 of them.
Well, he throws this ball right there. Osmus hardly having to move his glove. There's not a lot you can do that if you're Tony Grappanino. On the black, on the knees, away. Goodbye.
Last chance of the Braves. Catcher Eddie Perez. One for 6 with an RBI as a pinch hitter this year. Fastball comes flying in there for strike one. We have seen some high-octane pitching from the Houston staff tonight. Oh, one pitch. Coming into this ball game, their team ERA only 0.2 of a run worse than Atlanta.
Chipper says, wait a minute. These guys can throw some serious juice in there.
Randy Johnson, Billy Wagner, and the 0-2 pitch will finish off the Braves. Houston wins it 4-2. They take 2 out of 3 in the series, and they win the season series by a count of 5 wins to 4. Randy Johnson 6-1 with Houston. Maddux, the loser, goes 17-7, and it's save number 27 for Billy Wagner. Don't forget, Mets at Padres coming up next on ESPN. Armando Reynoso and Andy Ashby. Gary Thorne and Joe Morgan will have that call for you from Qualcomm Stadium coming up around 10:30 Eastern Time. Lots of highlights coming your way in the studio with John Buchagras. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Ray Knight and our crew here in Atlanta, Bob Carpenter. Have some fun with the homers. John, it's all yours.